So,
Darren.
hey, Patrick, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. What's going on?
It is all good. I want to thank you, Patrick, for joining us today. As I mentioned before, my name is Darren Markovitz, and I head up the advertising and monetization division over at INVU, which is part of Together Labs, as well as Together Labs is the whole company. Everything that we do, as I mentioned, is centered around really connecting people digitally through the use of avatars. We've got Patrick Buchanan here, and I'm super excited that he's joined us. I'd love Patrick to give a little introduction about yourself. You know, kind of what got you to the place that you're at as vice president, and a little bit about your history, about kind of where you came from and the previous work you've done.
Yeah, totally. I'm from Lexington, Kentucky. So I don't know if anybody's watching who knows Kentucky. So I come from a pretty small town, and I had big dreams. I always knew that I had to get out. I always thought I was going to live in New York, and I ended up in very beautiful and sunny Los Angeles, California. My career started as a journalist. I went to school to be a journalist. My first job out of school was actually through YouTube. Someone reached out to me to host a YouTube, and that's kind of where I got in digital marketing, and that was the early days of that to get my first job in fashion, where I started in social media, and I worked my way up through the department. I mean, like, I know some people get adverse reactions when you say the word hustle, but I was a little hustler at a young age, and definitely was working really hard. And I did every department in my company, started doing social media, did PR and product placement, celebrity seeding, and eventually I got the opportunity to be the head of the department. And I did that at Creative Recreation years, and then went on to be the head of marketing at K-Swiss, where we did amazing collaborations with people like Gary Vee, and really transformed, you know, a 50-year-old heritage brand into something that was relevant and back in the conversation and in some of the top retail stores today. And from there, I had the itch to go into music, which is one of my favorite passions. And I got to work with some of the coolest musicians in the world at Universal Music, doing artist tour merch. So, I mean, Bravado was the company, and we repped everyone from the Rolling Stones, The Weeknd, Lil Wayne, French Montana, Migos, Billie Eilish, and the list goes on. So that was a lot of fun. And today, as the VP of marketing at Good American, and, you know, working really hard. I'm fairly new in this position, but it's an exciting time for the brand, and I'm excited to be a part of this team now.
Awesome, very, very cool. Thank you for that. I appreciate the overview. Listen, you've got a pretty storied past about working with strong egos and strong personalities. You know, a lot of the work that you did at Universal, kind of bringing artist brands to life, creating strategies for that. You know, even at K-Swiss, it sounds like you kind of took the idea of brand ambassador and expanded it out to what we might traditionally think of. Can you talk to us a little bit about, you know, maybe recommendations to some of the marketers that we have here about what it's like to work with celebrities and egos, and some of the, you know, advice that you have for them today?
Yeah, totally. I mean, working with celebrities, it can be, you know, either really positive and really amazing, or it could be a little bit of a shit show. And I think that the way that I find out which avenue it's going to be is based on, you know, some of those initial preliminary meetings. I think when you're meeting with people, and it's no different from if you're going on a date, if you're interviewing someone for a job, you kind of like have to say, like, do you look like someone who really wants to be here and to be present and to interact with me and the brand and really help this thing grow? And I think that was one of the things that I learned at a really young age as a really young marketer, that it's finding the celebrity that is the perfect fit for your brand. And I know there's a lot of celebrities that have huge followings and have a huge, you know, names, and you want to work with those celebrities. But sometimes it's not about necessarily the biggest, it's about the one that's the best aligned with you and the one that's going to best help tell your story. So I've been lucky because I've gotten to work with a lot of different celebrities. And I think Gary Vee is a good example at K-Swiss, where he is an entrepreneur, he is a personality, and he inspires so many people. And when we work in a case Swiss, we were looking for someone to help bring that entrepreneur story to life. And Barney sent Gary a cold email and was like, this is what it is. Are you interested? And I was lucky because I got to go to the first meeting and meet Gary Vee, and he was a straight shooter. And like, he doesn't respond to everything. He responds to the things that really make sense for his business. And, from there, we really built a relationship, and he was involved in every single thing. It wasn't like, I'll post these 2 things and I won't post, like when you get into contracts where it's like, I'm only going to post one time here and I'm only going to do this thing one time there. It's like, you just have to be careful, because sometimes you run into situations where you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to get my money's worth? Because, we've spent all this money and we've gotten 2 posts. And the Gary one is a great example. And I mean, I've tweeted him, I've texted him, I've told him in person, I'm like, you are one of the best at this, because he was fully invested. He represented the brand. He helped guide the way as far as resources and finding other entrepreneurs, and really gave us the clout. He co-signed our brand and really allowed us to enter into his space. And I'll be forever grateful for him, because it was one of the most amazing campaigns that I got to work on. And it was just very super successful as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that, that story. When you talk about kind of things like the importance of collaboration and really, selecting who you want to work with. I mean, you're at a brand, and you've been at brands historically where you kind of could get anyone that you want. So can you talk, to us a little bit about the process of selecting, the right, the right ambassador for your brand, and kind of what that process looks like for you?
Yeah, sometimes it could be like a really easy process where someone is a fan of the brand. Like one of my favorite collaborations is the one we did with Jared Leto early on in my career when I worked at Creative Recreation. And he just wore the shoes all the time. Like everywhere he went, he wore the shoes. And we stopped making the shoes, and his team reached out and was like, oh my gosh, you can't find them. Where are they? And we were like, oh, we don't make these anymore. And because he was such a big fan, he was like, can I, for my fans, make a custom version of this pair of shoes? And so then we brought them back into production, and then he became a brand ambassador just because he was a big fan of the product. So I think that, like, when looking at kind of like, how am I choosing? Sometimes they choose you because it's, just such a perfect connection. And then sometimes it's like, as a marketer, we're storytelling. We're trying to find the best people and the best way to tell our story. And through products, sometimes it can be difficult because, shoes don't talk back, jeans don't talk back. So you need someone to help you imagine what that brand stands for. And usually people, and brands and celebrities help you kind of imagine what the story is. So you lean into their story to help, reinforce your brand values. And so I think I put a list together and, look, like, do they line up with our brand values, and how can we work together to really tell this story? So, I mean, we go through all the meetings and we make sure everyone signs off and is into it. And, I think once you kind of come up with your list, you approach them and you see if they're open and interested as well. And usually, pretty soon if it's going to be a good fit or not.
Sure. Awesome. And can you talk to us a little bit about some of the work, at Good American, because what you're talking about in selecting the right individual, frankly, it's very much like a theatrical release and doing their casting and all of that stuff. And it seems like that's a very natural segue into some of the work that you're doing over at Good American. Can you talk to us a little bit about the open casting initiative you guys are doing? Because I think that is something really, really phenomenal and special.
Yeah, I think so too. Good American is an inclusive women's denim brand. And, we make jeans from size 00 to 32 plus. So, it's just, we have something for everyone. And, one of the things that when you're looking at marketing, and I think I've been really blown away this year because, looking at someone X and a lot of movies. I saw Amazon has a movie called Jamie on Amazon, where there's representation. We're seeing across all industries that we're seeing just a lot more representation. And we at Good American, believe that that's really important, to be able to show people themselves. And so people can see something that looks like themselves. And so the open casting is really a casting call where we go around the world to find the next phase for our 2022 campaign. This is the 5th year the brand. We're celebrating 5 years, and we've done the open casting every year. We didn't get to do it last year because it was COVID, but really excited to be back and to go to many different cities around the world and to be able to really share something that it really embodies the brand message. So I can't wait for people to be able to join us on that journey.
That's very cool. And is this your first time touring with a brand, or you've done this type of work before?
I've been on tour before. When I've launched sneakers, I've gone on tour with Gary Vee, and I've gone on tour, a few other times, but this is going to be my first tour with Good American, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Very cool. And what's the process like, selecting your cities and, figuring out what the right experience is for the open casting? What did that process look like? And what advice do you have for some more marketers that are, trying to do kind of more live events with some of their influencers and, bringing in folks that might not be so familiar with and, engaging in this type of way?
Well, we still have some exciting announcements to come. I don't want to give away everything. So the city announcements and everything related to that is coming really soon. But I think the process is, we have a lot of different partners, and I think it's important to, go where your consumers are. And so I think that, we're going to go where the people are. And that's one of the things that I really admire about the brand, is that, we really listen to what the consumers are saying. We look at every DM and comment and really try to make sure that we're creating product and marketing that, our fans and followers want to see. And so I think this is exciting, because not all the time as a marketer do you get the chance to, be in front of the people who, are supporting the brand and really helping you. So I think it's a phenomenal opportunity, and it's always my favorite part of the job.
Cool. Very, very cool. Can you talk a little bit about some of the work you did over at Universal? As I mentioned, you were working with, individual celebrities, artists, and trying to create their brand or advise them on how to create their brand and their merchandise and all of this stuff. Can you talk us through kind of what that process was like? How did it start, and how were you able to replicate that?
Yeah, the merch business is a fun business to be a part of. That just like, any brand, these artists have stories to tell. And so through their music, their projects and their merch is a reflection in a different way for them to be able to tell that story. It's always interesting to be able to partner a creative artist with a designer. We did a lot of collaborations with different graphic designers or different brands to really help partner the artist with a partner that helped tell their story. And so it was usually around music. So the music helped dictate what the product looked like. And we really built the campaign around, their persona and their art. And I think that was always fun. And it was different from working on the brand side, because as a brand marketer, it can be a little bit challenging, because you're always trying to get people to pay attention or to reach people who have this huge followings. But musicians have a built-in audience. So, when you release something on a musician's platform, you're talking to diehard fans like immediately. So that was just a fun experience in the sense that, like, it was like, oh wow, I'm going directly to versus being like a third party. So I thought that was just a good different point of view for me to be able to see. And we brought it to life in so many different ways, from pop-up shop to DTC and creating a unique digital experience to creating fun social assets. So it was always something creative going on. And, I really love being a part of the process from beginning to end.
Cool. Very cool. Tell us where you're gaining some inspiration right now. What brands are doing great work that are, kind of excite you, that you can, guide our marketers to look at stuff that's, really innovative and, that's really catching your eye right now?
Oh my gosh, this is always a fun question for me. I am honestly really inspired by Good American. I know I work there, but I am fairly new to the team. So, every time I'm in a meeting and I'm watching things that we're working on for this year and the following year, I get super excited. So I think I'm excited at home, which is always a really good sign. And honestly, I'm just excited for the brands who are, being inclusive. When you look at, if it's International Women's Day or Pride or, the different things where we're able to look and see brands that are stepping up and helping tell a story. Levi's is doing a good job really, telling some of those stories. I think Nike is always doing a really great job at creating amazing ambassadors and telling awesome stories. Those are a few of the brands that I think, always inspire me. And I think that are doing really great work there. Cool. Fenty is doing great work. I think I just watched Amazon fashion show with Rihanna. And, I think that was phenomenal to kind of see how she brought so many different people together. So I'm a brand person, so I'm inspired by so many different people. I'm always looking and always being inspired. So definitely keep my eyes open. And if anybody has anything that I need to be checking out, definitely share it in the DMs.
For sure. Well, that's helpful. Also, talk to us about, do you incorporate the way that that people are interacting with one another? Obviously, over the last, year and a half, 2 years with the pandemic, the way that we all engage with one another, the way that we all connect, the way that we emotionally strive to be with one another. That's changed a little bit, and some of that's been highlighted through mental health initiatives and many other initiatives as well. Do you gain any inspiration from that type of work? Is that something that you try to or envision that being incorporated into things in the future? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think mental health is important. Over the pandemic, for the first time, I had my first therapy session. And, I have family members who are, life coaches and therapists. And, I feel like I've had a lifetime of therapy just because, I've been close to my family. But I definitely think, coming out of the pandemic and making sure that we're taking good care of ourselves and knowing when we have reached our breaking point and just finding, helpful and useful ways to be able to deal with stress or anxiety. There's nothing wrong with admitting that and finding different ways to be able to kind of like decompress and to handle your business. So, I'm a big proponent of, learning yourself and knowing when you're reaching your limits and finding ways to be able to, kind of handle it and work yourself out of a situation. So yeah, I think that's an important topic to and I'm definitely, now that I've been to my therapy session, I'm like, everyone needs to do it. I literally call all my friends and I'm like, here's my therapist, go to work, it's amazing. Because I thought that therapy had to be something that where it was like so dark and deep and hard. And, there's just some things that you just want to talk through and make sure you're, I just want a different perspective or, some people don't have a lot of people that they can like share honestly and openly with. And so I think I'm all for it. I say, if you don't have one, go get one.
And how have things changed, do you think, in the way that brands deal with consumers or interact with consumers, taking all of that into account over the last, couple of years? And what are the types of conversations that you have now that you might not have had 2 years ago when you guys are sitting around the table and shooting ideas back and forth? How has that influenced the conversation?
I think it has influenced the conversation greatly because we are a reflection of our consumers and their needs. And, while they likely need accessories and clothing, I think, we want to be a reflection of what they need in life as well. So I think helping to tell, important stories, to give advice on how to deal with stress, it is become a part of responsibility almost. So, I think it's not as transactional as it used to be. And when you look at your audience and your fan base and your consumers is almost like family, you want your family to be good, and you want to make sure that you can help assist them in anything that they're going through. Because, what you realize, I'm from Kentucky, and, I grew up in a time where a lot of what we see today wasn't available to people. And so it is a bit of my responsibility in my seat to make sure that, someone else who might be a young person in Kentucky who is in a similar spot that I was, that, through the see themselves or be able to hear something that they need and that inspires them. So, I mean, I take that pretty seriously, and I'm sure a lot of marketers are looking at that as we're creating brand campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Kentucky, a little bit different than Los Angeles, right?
A little bit.
Maybe not. I don't know. I haven't been, but I know that you've talked about the transition a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the differences, and more importantly, what it was like? Some of our marketers, they're not all from LA, New York, or wherever they're going to be, and some other folks that they like to share some information to. I know we all get called upon by folks that might be coming out of college or something and asking them for advice. For someone that might be from a smaller place, and a less recognized area as it comes to some of these large campaigns and some of these large businesses, moving to a larger city like the LA, New York, San Francisco, what's your advice for frankly some of them, or that they could pass on to frankly others?
Yeah, I think exposure is key. When I was young, I was curious. And, I can't even believe to this day that my family let me travel to some, was a young kid, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to New York, or I'm going to, and I remember when I was young, I was not even 18 or maybe just around that age. I won tickets to see Destiny's Child perform in LA. So that was the first time that they knew how big of a fan I was, a crazy fan of Destiny's Child. And I came to LA for the first time. My first internship was in New York. I interned for MTV News. And so I did that, which was really cool. And even if you can't go and spend a lot of time, I just found things that I could do that would allow me to be able to get exposure to those cities. And honestly, when I was young, they say, don't get credit cards. And, I definitely have learned the importance of managing your credit and not maxing your credit cards out. But I took a chance, I bet on myself, and I maxed my credit cards out to go have an internship in New York at MTV, because that was my dream. And what that provided me was it opened my mind to see what was out there. And from everything, it was from trying new foods and meeting different people. And, it's something that people say so much. And I know it sounds so cliche, but when it says your network is your net worth, in the sense of you have to kind of just reach out. And so even if you're in a small town and you don't know a lot of people, my family, I don't come from people in marketing or people in the entertainment business. I didn't have one connection when I came to any of the cities I came to. But the beauty of social these days is that a DM can get you in touch with anyone, and you'll be surprised who comments back or who responds back. And so, make sure that you're reaching out to people in places that you aspire to be. Try to go visit those places if you can and spend some time, whether it's an internship or just an extended stay, and do your research and save your money, more importantly. So, I think that I saved a little bit of money and I was able to move here. And I actually got my first job at the very end of my savings. I was like, if I don't get a job today, I likely will have to go back to Kentucky. And luckily the first opportunity came through. So I'm from a small town, and I look back and I can't believe some of the things that I've gotten to experience. And it's hard to even explain it to my family, because they just don't even understand me. I look like probably a crazy person. They probably think I'm an alien. I call and I'm like, this is what I'm doing today. And they're like, you are wild. But I'm able to provide a little exposure to them as well. And just the stories that I'm able to tell just in, our relationship. So that's probably the best advice.
Sure. And tell me a little bit about what do you recognize as kind of your big break, if you will, that kind of took you to the next level, some work that you did that kind of got you recognized. What was that for you? I know we all kind of have one where it was like, all right, I was kind of in a bucket with everyone else, and then somehow I was able to make that transition. What was that for you?
I feel like my life is a series of big breaks.
Yeah.
And at the time, it never feels like it because
Uh,
I'm kind of hard on myself. So it's like, it's never enough. I'm like, oh, like I just want this after I wanted that, So I think that sometimes I'm just always working to strive and hit the next milestone. And, I think that it helped me a lot. But these days I try to like celebrate the wins when they happen. But I mean, I've had a lot of big breaks, and I've had so many people who believed in me and who've given me an opportunity. When I was in New York for MTV, I was a correspondent for MTV for a day. I got to interview Kelly Clarkson, my first job that I got off of YouTube that led to me getting a job in fashion. My first boss, Robert Nan and Sarah Wasserman, promoting me and giving me the opportunity to do the stuff that I did at Creative Rec. I couldn't even believe that they let me be the head of marketing there. I'm like, I had the balls to be like, I was like, hey, like, I think that I should be the head of marketing. I should do the job. I'm like, I don't know. And they gave me a shot. And what I realized is that like, even the times when I may have not been prepared, because actually once I got the job, I was like, because I told them, I was like, I deserve the job because I'm already doing it. And it turned out I wasn't doing it at all. But I knew that I learned quickly, and, I know how to get things done. And so, I don't know if I've had one big break, but, I think a lot of consistent hard work, it just really pays off in the long run. I mean, from Good American to going to somebody else being crazy enough to give me an opportunity, like Barney Waters being like, hey, like, I want you to be my guy. And I'm like, really? I don't know, like, you guys are wild. And, going to Bravado. So I've honestly just been like, just very grateful, because I don't know how I ended up here. I just am like, what? Like, this is wild. Like, they keep giving me an opportunity, and I'm so thankful for it. So just never give up and don't stop. And I think in the moment, sometimes it just doesn't feel like you're achieving it, but then you look back and you're like, oh wait, like I did some of the stuff that was on my list. So I think a little perspective and time